Before I was an academic, I was a consultant, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that my consulting days were about being painfully naive. You see, in one project, our team worked around the clock, working on a financial model for a partner in our firm who was an economics expert. And to be honest, we didn't give him the respect that he deserved. We would gossip behind his back that he couldn't even open Excel or PowerPoint. That he was so behind the times while we were slaving away on analyses and slides for him. And we thought it was a complete joke. Well, it turned out that the joke was on us. When it came time to review our work, he showed up at 9 a.m., energetic, clean-shaven, after a good night's sleep, while we, the night before, were working till 2 a.m., totally tired. Well, it took him about 10 minutes to stop us cold in our presentation. He skimmed through the slides and something didn't sit right for him. And you know what? He was right. Things were not making sense because we had mistakenly converted US dollars into pesos midway through the analysis, and it cascaded through everything. And so the analysis that we did was fundamentally wrong. So to me, the whole thing was absolute magic. How did he figure it out so easily, so quickly? He could not have built the model himself. He could not have known some aspects of the model that we did. But he understood the client's business at a level that we didn't. He saw the big picture, he saw the context, he realized what the numbers should roughly look like before he even opened the slides. I didn't have a language to explain what happened then, but I do now, and I want to share it with you today because it's an important distinction that will help your career. So the key concept came all the way back in 1993. David Maister, who was a former business school professor, he went on to advise law firms and consulting firms, and he published a book that had a very boring title called Managing the Professional Services Firm. But the boring title shouldn't put you off because it has one of the most useful frameworks for understanding who succeeds and who doesn't in consulting and banking and law and other services firms. See, Maister divides people in professional services into 3 lanes. The first lane is grinders. Grinders do the actual work. They execute the analyses, draft the documents, build the models. They're the technical engine of the firm. In most firms, they work long hours. In a law firm, they're the associates. In consulting, they're the analysts and associates. They're super smart, they're super hardworking, often technically gifted people. The second lane is minders. Minders manage the work and the client relationship. They coordinate the team, they oversee the quality, they serve the client day to day on the project. They're responsible not for bringing work in, but for making sure that it gets done well. Now, as you might imagine, minders earn significantly more than grinders, not necessarily because they work harder than grinders, but because their effectiveness multiplies the outputs of everybody around them because they're leading the team. The third lane is the finders. The finders originate the business. They build relationships that bring clients to the firm in the first place. They're what you call the rainmakers. And in most professional services firms, they are the ones who are most highly compensated, and sometimes by a large margin. So the structure tends to be a pyramid. There are many grinders at the base. There are some of the smartest people you'll ever meet. There are fewer minders in the middle, and there are a small number of finders at the top. In terms of hours worked, it's basically an inverted pyramid. The grinders usually work the most, followed closely by the minders, and the finders don't necessarily have to work as much because their job is to initiate and maintain the overall client relationship. So Maister's insight that it took me way too long to realize is that progressing in your career in services firms like consulting and banking and law is not linear. You see, the grinder who becomes a minder is not just a better grinder. The minder who becomes a finder is not the best minder. These transitions require fundamentally different skills. And in some cases, they require unlearning what made you successful before. See, grinders succeed through technical precision and execution and getting things done and on time. These skills are, of course, great. They get you hired as a grinder, but they also orient you inwardly towards your work, towards the deliverable, and not outwardly towards the clients. In contrast, finders succeed through relationship building, being comfortable with ambiguity, and willingness to be visible to clients. These skills orient them outward towards people and towards trust and towards conversations that may not produce anything for years. You see, a finder's job is to always maintain a working relationship with clients, even when they don't have a project that's currently going on with these clients. Because you never know when a client decides to hire you, so you got to keep on their radar. That's a fundamentally different skill than being a grinder who completes complicated analysis on time with high quality. Now, researchers that study professional transitions find that one of the biggest barriers of moving from one role to another is not necessarily acquiring new skills. Rather, it's identity. People who've spent years succeeding as technical experts have built their self-concept around that expertise. Being asked to become a finder doesn't just require new behaviors and new skills, it requires becoming a different kind of person. And that's really hard to do. There's also a problem with feedback. You see, grinders get clear, rapid feedback. If the model is not right, they know that. If the model's on time, that they know that. The finder doesn't get almost any feedback at all, especially in the short term, because client relationships take years to develop into business. And even after they develop into business and the project is complete, the next project is uncertain. As a finder, you do a lot of outreach calls that go unanswered. Is that bad? Is that good? You go to a lot of coffee meetings that lead nowhere. Is that bad? Is that good? Now, for people who've been grinders, who've been rewarded their whole career for tangible outputs, uncertainty and ambiguity is really uncomfortable. Now, finders typically compensated based on the business that they originate. In many firms, it actually creates a dramatic disparity in pay because a finder who brings in a significant amount of revenue can earn multiples of what the minders and the grinders working on that revenue actually earn. Now, the reason this happens is because if you're a great finder, if you have a lot of strong client relationship, then all of a sudden you become portable. You're able to move around and take some or all of the clients with you. And so if the firm doesn't keep you happy, then you can leave. And so the firm has to keep you happy. And one of the ways it does that is with higher pay. On the other hand, this creates the problem that grinders who actually do the work and minders who actually manage the work feel undervalued and they could leave too. But the stark reality is that when they go, the clients don't usually follow because their relationship, their point person was with the finder. So obviously, overall, if you stay in those industries like consulting and law and banking, you want to get to a position where you're a finder or a minder. And so knowing the difference is really, really important. You might start out as a grinder, but as you're doing the work, you have to develop a different skill set in order to be promoted on to the next role. So a few things worth taking away from this framework if you're thinking about where you are and where you want to go. So the first is you want to resist spending your energy on whether the system is fair or unfair. I guess you can make a strong case for the system being not fair because finders often seemed overpaid relative to the visible effort they put in. The partner that we worked with basically spent 10 or 20 minutes on our slides. Yes, his input was very valuable, but compared to the many hours that we spent, we felt like it's a little bit unfair. However, thinking primarily about fairness in the system is rarely what changes your position within the system. What you want to do is understand the rules well enough to move through them strategically, and that's what gets you forward. The second insight is over time, you'll have to shift what gives you meaning and satisfaction in your work. Grinder work, even though it's a lot of hours, can give you a lot of satisfaction because you get certain feedback on a short-term basis. If the analysis is right and high quality, people tell you that. If the project is on time, people tell you that. But finder work doesn't offer you that kind of certainty because relationships develop over long and unpredictable time horizon. Moreover, if you're a grinder, you likely enjoy working with numbers. As a finder, you work less with numbers and more with people, especially clients. And these transitions require learning to find meaning in things like relationships, in things like ambiguity, in things like uneven progress. So whether you enjoy your days will be determined by the quality of a conversation rather than whether you solved a model correctly, and by whether you're building trust with a potential client rather than whether it converts into business right away. Now, the uncertainty of it, the ambiguity of it are actually quite hard to stomach when you're just starting out. However, there's a side effect that's kind of positive, which is that your professional life becomes more human. When you stop measuring every interaction by the business outcome and start measuring it by the quality of the connection, the work starts to feel less transactional, and that is an actual psychological benefit. But the transition is not easy. The third insight is you want to start acting like the role that you want before you have it. The research on professional transitions found that people who successfully change roles don't plan their way into their new identity, but rather they act on it ahead of time. So you want to start taking small steps that belong to the role that you want to go to while you're in the previous role. So you want to do things like you want to volunteer to be in the room in a meeting when a senior partner meets with a client. That could be invaluable observation if you want to eventually become that partner. You also want to try to get mentors. You want to take people to coffee without an agenda just to try to learn about what they do and how they think. These are low stakes steps that will help you to get direct experience about what finders actually do and what doing this and what their job actually feels like. Moreover, these are helpful steps to signal to the people above you that you're trying to develop in that direction. You see, as a finder, you have to tolerate ambiguity about your own contribution. You have to trust that all the work that you're doing is accumulating into something real over time, even when there's nothing to show for it ahead of time. And so it's easy to talk about it, but without experiencing it and seeing other people do it successfully, you won't be able to understand how to step into the finder's role. So whether you're a grinder or a minder, you have to start seeing what finders do and start doing things that finders do in order to get there eventually. So if we're going back to the partner that we did not respect enough during my old consulting days, I guess one sign of respect that I've given him is that I've never forgotten him. He didn't humiliate us or criticize us or do anything like that when he exposed our error, which was to his credit. But watching him work without having in-depth technical knowledge, without literally being able to open Excel or PowerPoint, was literally the first time I understood that expertise comes not just from technical expertise, but also from understanding the big picture and understanding your relationship with another human being, which is the client. So I, if I may say so, was a great grinder, but he was something else entirely. He was a finder, and there was a reason why he was getting paid the big bucks while I was getting paid a lot less. So this finder, minder, grinder framework, it's not so much about a judgment about which role is most valuable. It's not a judgment about what's fair and unfair, but it's a map for you. And maps are useful because they tell you where to go next and they tell you how to get there. So people who figured that map earlier got promoted earlier. I took a long time to figure it out, and I don't want you to be in my position. So it's not about working harder, although you do have to work hard. It's not about technical expertise, although you do have to have that if you're a grinder. Rather, it's about working on different things. And so understanding what minders and finders work on will keep your eyes open to how to make that transition. So good luck.